He's unbelievable. Every year has been one of the top keynotes, and he warmed us up a little bit on the panel, did a great job on the panel, but I expect, this is going to be just unbelievable. You're going to really enjoy this. Of course, I'm talking about Lieutenant General Simon Stuart, amazing leader, the Chief of the Australian Army. Lieutenant General Stuart enlisted as a soldier in 1987 and has more than 38 years of experience across a whole range of leadership, operations, training, and of course, program management appointments in Australia and overseas. He commanded operations on 5 occasions at the company, joint task force, brigade, and force levels in East Timor, Afghanistan, and Egypt. Unbelievable experience. Oh, and Israel, I left that out. And then was the head of land capability in Army headquarters prior to coming to the chief job. He holds a master's degree in project management from the University of New South Wales, defense studies from King's College in London, and then a master's in strategy from our own U.S. Army War College. So please join me in welcoming an amazing leader, and again, I'm sure going to be a tremendous keynote, Lieutenant General Stuart.
Aloha. So thanks very much, General Brown. No pressure. Picture, if you will, a maritime region, one of peninsulas, islands, seas, one where trade flows through the straits of strategic terrain. The affairs of this region are shaped by 2 dominant nations, one a long-standing established power with a storied history of regional leadership. The other, a rising power, the result of trade, mercantilism, opportunity, and resolve. The rising power is building a great navy of a scale that appears to go well beyond just influencing its proximal seas and securing its prosperity. For some time, these 2 nations have prospered together. Indeed, they've often worked in league with each other and against common foe. But in recent years, tensions have grown. They talk less, and a deep suspicion has taken hold. Competition is now the norm, and conflict, it seems, is on the horizon. Indeed, it may be inevitable. The story may have a familiar echo, but it's not a contemporary one. It's instead a story of more than 2.5 millennia ago, set in the Peloponnese, where the great powers of the day, Sparta and Athens, spiraled into a conflict that would eventually destroy them both. One of the most relevant contentions to be drawn from the Peloponnesian Wars is what has today become known as the Thucydides trap. The idea that conflict is inevitable when a rising power challenges an established one. That it was, as Thucydides recalls, the rise of Athens and the fear this inspired in Sparta that made war inevitable. As an Australian, I reflect on a different story, one much less well known, but no less important. The story of the role that allies and partners, many of which what we might describe today as middle powers, played in creating the conditions for the Peloponnesian Wars. Athens and Sparta's respective allies were not helpless bystanders in this great power competition. Indeed, in many ways, they were quite the opposite. Key players who in their own interest stoked the friction and encouraged the war. The Megarians, a Spartan ally and whose city dominated regional trade routes, were furious when the Athenians levelled unilateral trade sanctions against them. They demanded a Spartan response, saying that the sanctions were an offence to all nations in the region. The Corinthians ventured even farther. Faced with what they saw as Athenian aggression, They sought to shame Sparta into war. They publicly lambasted the Spartans for their failure to contain Athens and their rise to power. And they threatened to find new allies if the Spartans were too weak. Spartan pride served as an accelerant in this response. So yes, the rise of Athens created the possibility of war, but one might reasonably conclude that allies and partners were the catalysts of its inevitability. They stoked fear in Sparta, questioned Spartan honour, and seemingly engaged the interests of both protagonists. Fear, honour, and interest, a familiar and compelling set of motivations to engage in the devastating contest that is war. A lesson to be drawn, perhaps, is that allies and partners have agency and influence, and with these come great responsibility. Now, given what is at stake, it's incumbent, on all nations and all institutions of national power to wield their agency and influence judiciously, transparently, and with a tragic sensibility. It's a real privilege to be here at LAMPAC and to be here among friends. It's an honour to have been invited to deliver a keynote in such company. And I'd like to use the opportunity that's been afforded to me this morning to speak with you all directly and plainly. We are a powerful collective. The strategic land power network that we represent is quite remarkable when considered in its entirety. The armies and the Marine forces that we are privileged to lead and steward collectively number in the region of 1.5 million regular soldiers, over 3.5 million including reservists. We collectively hold over 6,000 armoured fighting vehicles, over 10,000 artillery pieces, and several hundred attack helicopters, for example. That's interesting, but we are far more than just hard power. The friendships in this room are built on the sacrifice of those whom have gone before us, and the rich histories of our nations and our region. Many of our relationships have been forged in the crucible of war, for good and for ill, and we are stronger for it today. Our collective will and cohesion is, in my estimation at least, more valuable than all of our hard power put together. The land power that we collectively generate is a force to be reckoned with. Its value proposition can be described by a set of 5 advantages that we individually and collectively share. These advantages derive from our common purpose. They drive unity of effort and they serve our collective interests. We can use these advantages to reduce the likelihood of conflict and of war, and surely that is the acme of deterrence. The first of our shared advantages is our sheer presence. Our soldiers and Marines are in every corner of our nations and our region. We are deeply connected with the societies we serve. The army that I'm privileged to lead is one of the oldest and most respected national institutions in Australia. The story of the Australian Army is a part of the foundational story of our nation. We are garrisoned in some 157 locations across the breadth and depth of the Australian continent. We are intimately connected with the community we serve. And I know each of you have a similar story, because the history of armies tend to reflect in the history of nations. But increasingly, we are present in our region together. And I cannot recall a time in nearly 4 decades of service when we have trained and operated together at the frequency, the scale, the level of sophistication, and with such a sense of shared purpose as we do today. From Super Garuda Shield to Alon, Yamasakura, Chapel Gold, Wontok Warrior, to the 19 nations that will convene in Australia this coming July for Talisman Sabre, our collective presence demonstrates our collective will for a peaceful region. This matters. Our presence is supported by our second advantage, our ability to persist. It is impossible for even the most capable of militaries to maintain a continuous presence of platforms across the vast scale of the Indo-Pacific. Our armies, however, can offset these challenges by our ability to persist indefinitely, regardless of season, weather, or terrain. Land forces are survivable, able to conceal in the diverse jungle and complex urban terrain that characterise our region. Now, some argue that persistence is being challenged by the changing character of war, and it is. But the proliferation of sensor technology, the experience of Russia's invasion of Ukraine are held up as evidence. But when we view the lessons of Ukraine through an Indo-Pacific lens, the effects of the environment create a very different set of challenges. Many of the nations represented here are in the top 10 countries for average rainfall per year, experiencing up to 4 metres of rain annually, for example. Mist and thick canopy are prevalent. And then, of course, there is the tyranny of distance. The use of massed technical systems to detect, recognise and identify concealed land forces is a very different proposition in our region. Concealment, dispersal and deception all remain viable counters for a disciplined, diligent and innovative force. The ability of land forces to persist and to survive in the face of attack is a common strength. But presence and persistence can go beyond physical and tactical benefits. Our most important choice is to be present together and to persist together. The presence of allies together in key strategic terrain diminishes the impact of coercion and aggression against them. It increases the risk associated with any choice by an adversary to use hard power, applied as it must then be against the many, against the collective. Collective capability, habitually employed side by side, is a remarkably powerful expression of collective will. And we can do more to enhance our presence and our persistence tangibly in the immediate term. The simplest approach is for better interoperability between our people, our technology, and our doctrine, tactics, techniques, and procedures. But there is an opportunity to be more strategic in our approach. Ad hoc relationships are good, but the more we do to formalise our agreements and arrangements and to normalise our collective presence, the more credible it becomes. Enhancing our presence, our capacity to persist together is, in my assessment at least, central to any collective theory of success and is vital in deterring conflict. Our third advantage is asymmetry, our ability to apply our strengths against the weaknesses of adversaries, ideally in ways that delay and disrupt their will and their capacity to respond. I view this particularly through a defensive lens. History tells us time and time again that even small, well-prepared ground formations in well-fortified defensive positions, layered and sensibly arrayed, can generate asymmetry against much larger and more capable forces. The anti-access, area denial, and very long-range fires that predominate in parts of our region are optimised for ships, for planes, and for infrastructure. Land forces in the defence dispersed are harder to identify and to target, hiding among the clutter of the land and the EMS, and employing multi-domain deception. We're able to disperse and to deceive, to create dilemmas for adversaries who must choose how to set their targeting thresholds and where to expend their magazine. Distributed land forces can in this way blur the kill web, making it harder for an adversary to apply decisive action. Now, asymmetry is an inherent strength we all share. The question for us is, however, how do we best combine our efforts in support of our common interests? Perhaps we need a concept like distributed asymmetry to ensure that collectively we are more than the sum of our individual contributions. Now, asymmetry is most effective when it's applied at the right place and at the right time. And if we tilt the map, and the geography of our region literally ties us together. The land bridge connects New Zealand to Japan. The history of our region tells us exactly where the strategic terrain is. We can ill afford to overlap one another's asymmetric strengths. It makes a lot more sense for us to offset each other's vulnerabilities. And there is, I believe, an opportunity for us to consider this in further detail in our staff talks, in our planning, and our operations, activities, and investments. If we can position our asymmetry in the right place at the right time, then we can make the most advantage of our fourth advantage, our versatility. Now, I contend that land forces are the most versatile of military forces. Practically any well-led and trained army formation can fulfil practically any task, ranging from domestic HADR to combat operations. And it is in this regard that I most often look to our teammates in the United States Marine Corps as an example. They've spent their entire history nurturing a culture of versatility and adaptability that is instructive. Versatility is all the more important in the face of the tyranny of distance. As I stand here today, I'm nearly 8,500 kilometres, or about 5,200 miles from home. That's about 12 hours by air and a 13-day sail at economical speed. The versatility of land forces in the Indo-Pacific is critical to overcoming this tyranny of distance. Now, I need the Australian Army to be able to transition in stride from training and rehearsing for battle to disaster relief should the need arise. And I certainly need them to be able to go the other way as well. When viewed through a collective lens, our capability and capacity to adapt and to successfully meet the challenges of today and tomorrow are evident and are indeed continually evolving. For evidence of this, look no further than what our soldiers learn from one another as they operate together at home and abroad every day. So finally, what do we generate from the relative advantages of land power? Presence, persistence, asymmetry, versatility, and this combination, in my estimation, delivers exceptional value. Now, some of this is about value for money, and that really matters today. But I advocate that armies offer significant return on investment, particularly given the prominence of land power in the history of defending nations and ending wars. But the collective value of land power is perhaps best viewed through a broader lens, starting with the relationships that exist in this room. These are strong. Some are new, but most are the product of a long-term investment. Our army-to-army relationships, our army-to-marine relationships are enduring, they are resilient, and they are dexterous. They have tangible but often overlooked value that goes well beyond a defence dollar. They allow us to look past the news of the day and to engage on a foundation of personal and institutional trust. There is true value in the enduring strategic land power network. So in bringing this to a close, let's return to 432 BC and to Athens and Sparta. Even though a tragic sensibility demands that we seriously consider the worst and apply the lens of a professional pessimist, I do not believe that any war is inevitable. The Peloponnesian Wars were in large part a failure of transparency, of strategic empathy, and of communication. Fear, honour, and interest, Thucydides' diagnosis of the three elements of the human condition that drive behaviour of states in international relations, continue. The obvious question is, could the Athenians and the Spartans have found a way to reduce their fear of each other, to respect each other's honour, and to have found common interest? Perhaps the question worthy of our consideration today is, how could the likes of the Megarians and the Corinthians have eased tensions instead of stoking them? One of the other popular theories that emerges from Thucydides' witness of the Peloponnesian Wars is the Melian dilemma. The idea that the strong do what they can and the weak will suffer what they must. Some argue that this is a reality of the world and of our times, and they are right to assess that the spectre of great power competition dictates the organising principles and that the inherent tension is real. But I contend that, like most simplifications, the Melian dilemma implies determinism and obscures agency and the potential of collective resolve. The real story that Thucydides tells is that allies and partners have agency, the capacity to ease tensions at least as much as to exacerbate them, accompanied, of course, by the weight of great responsibility. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be part of this exceptional team of leaders across our region and beyond. And when I consider our common purpose, we are truly one team. In closing, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to General Clark and all of the team at United States Army Pacific, and a special thanks to General Brown and all of the AUSA team for bringing us together at another superb Land Forces of the Pacific. Now, this year marks the 250th birthdays of both the United States Army and the United States Marine Corps, and I want to wish you all a very happy birthday in advance. We in the Australian Army are very proud of over 100 years of friendship and mateship, and we look forward to serving alongside you in the course of the next 100 years. Thank you very much.
Morning, sir. Major Young Ju, Army Fellow AUSA. So it's a two-part question for you. So the first part of the question is, what are some of the less known capabilities or niche strengths that the Australian Army can contribute to the regional conditions? And then the second part is, how can like-minded partners better leverage those capabilities in joint planning? Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the question. I think we all suffer from the illusion that we're somehow unique or special. I don't think that's the case, whether that's historically or we each bring something to the fight. And I'm very, very proud to lead an army that has a pretty pragmatic outlook that is able to leverage our key strength, and that is our people. As we heard from the phenomenal senior leader panel yesterday, our strength is in our soldiers, our real strength is in our NCO Corps. And it's our investment in the training, education, experience, leader development of our NCO Corps, and through that, our investment in our soldiers, that I think sets us apart. That's not unique with anyone else in the room, but it's something we take a great deal of time and attention to do. Armies are human organisations. Technology matters. We are not Luddites by any stretch of the imagination, but our job as military professionals, and in particular as land force professionals, is to sensibly make judgments about the balance between war's enduring human nature and its ever-changing character. That ever-changing character is dominated by technological change of a scope, a pace and a tempo that we've not seen before. That's perhaps one aspect of our generation that is unique from those who may have gone before. And the soldiers, the NCOs and the young officers that are joining our army and serving our army today are the ones that are going to operate, lead and command our army, our armies, in the challenges tomorrow and the day after. And that's why it's so important that we have that balance as part of our PME, our training, education and experience, and that we invest in all three dimensions of an army, as a profession, as a national institution and as a fighting force. Thanks for your question.
Hey, Simon, again, thanks. Masterful as always, and appreciate the 250th birthday shout out to the Army and the Marines. Bob Brown said he doesn't feel that old yet, so we're working on that. A couple quotable quotes. You've highlighted a few things: persistence, presence, symmetry, in your remarks. And I highlight yesterday, Admiral Paparo mentioned something telling. He said, "Deterrence remains our highest duty." So across the Pacific, across the land forces that we have, and you've reinforced several times, all of the exercises that we have grown together as partners, allies, and we will continue to do that. From your perspective, the question then is, if deterrence remains our highest duty, how do you see, as we look to the longer term future, to reinforce that deterrence as part of our partnership going forward? Thanks.
Thanks for the question, much appreciated. I've got to offer two points in response. Deterrence, in my view, at least, is a day-by-day proposition. Deterrence is ultimately a combination of art and science, because if you look at who we're trying to deter, its outcome, whether we're successful or whether we fail in our highest duty, is determined in the mind of its objective. And we shouldn't underestimate the Shakespearean nature of the human condition and the power that is vested in world leaders. Deterrence relies on the deterrent being relevant and credible. And of course, relevance and credibility are relative to the operating environment, the pacing threat. Our military contribution to all the elements of national power and the prosecution of statecraft by our elected representatives needs to be relevant and credible. There needs to be a match, a coherence, a lack of a say-do gap between collective will and collective capability. And our job is to give expression in the military element of national power to collective will. I think collectively we do that very, very well. And what were previously a series of largely bilateral and in some cases minilateral exercises are now a campaign that constitutes operations, activities and investments with purpose. They are developing our capabilities at the rapid rate every single day. We have persistence, we have presence, we are absolutely developing a symmetry at the right place and at the right time. That trajectory continues. Would we like it to be faster? Absolutely. But I think we're going at a really, really impressive rate. And what I've personally been part of and witnessed over just the last 3 years is nothing short of remarkable. And I've not seen anything like it in my service. I hope that answers your question.
Sir, thank you so much for being here. Please give General Stuart a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thanks again, General Stuart, for a great presentation. Next, we will hear from Brigadier General Catherine A. Trombley, Commanding General 9th Mission Support Command, United States Army Reserve, who will moderate the